definition of research brings us to the explanatory part of how the research has to be reported. It has to be either described, it can be explained, or it can even also lead to prediction, and sometimes it also leads to controlling the observed phenomenon. Third is, it is a process of systematic inquiry. Again, the term systematic crops up here. It is a process of systematic inquiry that entails collection of data. The second major element of the process of research is that some type of data has to be collected. That data can be various aspects of our life. It can be the amount of time we sleep. It can be the amount of time we spend on social media scrolling. It can be the time, it can be how happy we are, what is the extent of our happiness, what is the extent of our sadness. When you collect these kind of information, that is the collection of the data. And then after the data is collected, there is a documentation of critical information that leads to the analysis and interpretation of that particular data that you have collected as part of your research. The other another definition of research is that it is the creation of new knowledge. So that brings us to another aspect of understanding what we mean by research. Research means not to regurgitate or churn only what already exists in terms of the corpus or the body of knowledge. A body of knowledge already exists. We carry out a research not only to rehash or recycle the existing knowledge. We carry out research, we conduct or we employ, we engage in research in order to bring out certain new aspect of that particular knowledge, which will add to that corpus of existing knowledge. So what research also entails is the creation of new knowledge. That is something that the students have to pay attention to, that our emphasis on any kind of research should not only be to go through existing literature, secondary information, and then process them to come up with some knowledge that already exists. That might not actually constitute a very well rounded, wholesome research. It might only be churning of existing knowledge. So what is of importance is to realize that it has to lead to the creation of new knowledge. And then lastly, it is a method of exploration that is done in a systematic way, whether it is either tested or investigated to add to the body of knowledge, something that we have already talked about. That brings us to this next item here. Do you see this particular screen on your, or no, you do not see that? Okay. So research, before we go into the major points of our discussion today, I'd just like to briefly touch upon this particular slide here, which talks about research philosophy, research approach, research methods, research strategies, the time horizon, and techniques and procedures of how each of these type of research is to be conducted. When we talk of research philosophy can broadly be categorized into four broad areas. So one such research philosophy is called positivism. Okay, positivism. For example, you must have heard of Auguste Comte. So Auguste Comte was one of the pioneers who developed this type of research philosophy based on empirical truth, something that can be measurable, something that is measured and which is objective in nature. So that kind of a research is called a positivistic research paradigm. Positivist research, something that is grounded in facts and figures, and measurable facts and figures. Okay, for example, an experimental study, an experiment that you have conducted to find out any aspect of the research investigation you are invested in. So that kind of a research philosophy or paradigm is called positivism. The second kind of research paradigm is called realism. So realism is basically a mix of what we call empirical as well as a more subjective kind of research that is undertaken. That is called realism. The third philosophy in research is called interpretivist research. Interpretivist research is more subjective in the way that it requires a lot of critical faculty, a critical understanding of a particular phenomenon or an issue to make assessment or evaluation of a particular phenomenon that exists in the universe. So that kind of a subjective research can be called interpretivist research. And the fourth kind of research is called, research paradigm or philosophy is called pragmatic research. So first, pragmatic research is basically again something that is grounded on the objectives or the aims and objectives of that particular research that you are undertaking. If that entails a mix of empirical as well as subjective, data collection instruments, so be it. So when you include a mix of subjective as well as empirical methods, data collection, research methods into your study, into your research, that research would constitute what we call a pragmatic research paradigm. So all kinds of research, if you look broadly into the way by the methodology that it has employed, the theoretical frameworks or the conceptual frameworks that it has employed, you can broadly categorize them into these four paradigms. The first is positivist research, second is realist research, third is interpretivist research, and fourth is pragmatic research. So these are the four paradigms. And then we come to research approach. What are the ways in which we can approach a particular research based on whether it is a positivist research or a realist research, interpretivist research, or pragmatic research. In terms of research approach, we have these three approaches. They are called inductive research, deductive research, and abductive research. Because in research, we have understood that we either take the help of a theoretical framework to investigate whether the data that we have collected fits into, reinforces, or reasserts the theory that were already conceptualized by some communication scholar in the past. So that kind of a research, when you test a theory, when you test a particular theoretical framework to carry out the research, for example, uses and gratification of social media among young people. If you are using this particular theoretical framework to measure the kind of gratification that young people derive out of social media use, that kind of a theory testing research would be called a deductive research. When you test a theory it is called a deductive research. You deduce and you reach at some conclusions whether it will reinforce the theory that was already formulated, or it negates the theory that was formulated. And that is why in such deductive research we include what is called research hypothesis. Just keep this thing in mind. Deductive research is a theory testing research that would include the use of research hypothesis. This just It might be a little complicated. You might lose the strand here and there. Just stay with me for some time here. Deductive would be a theory testing research that would include the use of research hypothesis. As opposed to deductive research, we have another approach to carry out research, which is called the inductive approach. Inductive approach is a kind of research where we carry out the research in order to build a new theory. We are not testing an existing theory, but we are in the process of building a new theory, a new communication theory. So that kind of a research would include the use of research questions and not research hypotheses. So hypothesis would include the use of statistics, and inductive research would include the use of research questions. And the third type of research approach is called an abductive approach. Abductive approach means in the lines of the pragmatic kind of research philosophy or research paradigm, abductive research would include a mixture or an intermix of both deductive aspects of research approach as well as inductive approach. It might start off with the process of testing a communication theory, but at the end of the research, it might lead to the creation of a new communication theory. So such kind of research is called an abductive approach. So after we have understood the research paradigm as well as research approaches are of three types: inductive approach, deductive approach, as well as abductive approach. We come to the methodological choices that we make while conducting a research based on whether it is an inductive research or a deductive research or an abductive research. Our methods, our research methods that we employ to for a particular research study or a research problem will be determined. For example, in deductive research approach, while taking up a deductive research approach where hypothesis is used, it has to be a quantitative research method. The methodology of that particular research has to be quantitative in nature. It is to be empirical in nature, where things are measured. So one of the major methods used in media research is called the quantitative method, where things are measured by different, measurement instruments or even measurement scales. So we have quantitative method, and then for inductive research, particularly those research that involves the formulation of research questions, these are qualitative in nature, and as a result of which the methodological choices will be qualitative in nature. For example, qualitative methods will be used. So now and then for the abductive kind of research approach, we have something called mixed method approach, mixed method methodology, MMR, mixed method research. For example, mixed method would include a combination of both quantitative as well as qualitative data collection instruments. So these are the methodological choices. Very broadly, media research encompasses three broad areas of methodological choices. These are quantitative methods, qualitative methods, as well as mixed method methodology. Okay, so these are, having just touched upon these three major methodological approaches, we come to some specific examples of the methods that are employed in either inductive, deductive, or abductive kind of researches. For example, if you carry out an experimental study would constitute a quantitative methodology that you have employed for your study, an experimental study. A survey would also include, or a survey would also include what is called a quantitative approach. And archival research would be something that is based on secondary resources which already exist. For example, for qualitative research, we have examples like ethnography. Now, ethnography is an area that is subjective in nature. A lot of it depends on the researcher's observation or the diary notings that he or she makes while making observations about certain phenomenon or aspects of social life, or the way the media has transformed in the last 2 decades. These are all aspects of research that might fall into an ethnographical methodological strategy. So, and case study is another qualitative method that is concentrated on deriving data from individual units of a particular population. So and then we have narrative inquiry and grounded theory. Grounded theory is actually a method that is applied for carrying out abductive kind of research. Abductive research would include not starting off your research with any theoretical formulation, but from the grounds up you start your research, and then at the end of the process you end up formulating a new theory. That kind of a approach of in terms of methods is called a grounded theory method. And then research in terms of time horizon can be either cross-sectional in nature. Cross-sectional would be at a single point in time with different sections of a particular population, and the other aspect would be longitudinal research, which would be more the time span of longitudinal research is more enhanced and enlarged, and it basically deals with long periods of time. Longitudinal study, especially for students like you, it might not be possible to carry out longitudinal study. Most of your studies would be concentrated on cross-sectional studies. And what are the techniques and the procedures for the data that you have collected through different data collection instruments? One would be to analyze that data either with the inclusion, or either by employing statistical packages, or to use critical, you know, insights into analyzing the aspects of the findings that you have reached at. That brings us to the next, for especially since we are second year students here, just getting into understanding the ropes of research and just starting off their research journey, I thought this would be a little relevant to you. How do we prepare a research report? For example, these basic standard, structure or the protocol that we follow while preparing a research report or our dissertation or our thesis or our MPhil, report. For example, first that would be included in your dissertation would be a short abstract. An abstract would give a gist of what your research is all about. It will lead a reader. It is almost like window shopping. You give a taste of what it is all about. So you talk about the research problem. Research problem is basically the topic of your study, and the topic of your study is basically an establishment of a relationship between two or more variables that you have identified that might or might not have a possible relationship with each other. For example, social media usage and self-esteem. Now, social media usage is one variable and self-esteem is the other variable. You are trying to establish whether there exists any possible relationship between these two variables. And then after you put a colon, you also give away the method that you have applied. Content analysis of the social media postings of university students. So that is the methodology. For example, the formulation of a research, topic would include what we call the now this is a bit complicated. There are four major terms that we use in research. One such term is called ontology. Ontology means the knowledge that exists in the universe. That is the ontology, the ontological inquiry or ontology. The second term that we use in research is called epistemology. Epistemology is the way by which we can reach to the truth of that particular existence. What are the ways in which we can reach to that particular understanding of that issue that exists in the universe? So that is the epistemology. Third is called the methodology, the methods that are applied in order to reach or to give a concrete shape to the epistemic investigation. And the fourth is called the axiology. Axiology is basically the value that you attribute to the particular research investigation that you have undertaken, whether it is of any public interest or not, whether it is of any worth to the society or not, whether it will lend value to the existing corpus of knowledge or not. When you decide on these ethical dimensions of your research problem, then you are basically engaging in an axiological inquiry or axiological deliberation. So what we have so far understood, that research basically is a interplay, or it is a cross play of these four terms that we use in research. It is the ontology, the epistemology, the methodology, and the axiology. And when we write the research topic, even in for our dissertation or for our PhD thesis, we are basically reflecting or manifesting the 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 ontological, the epistemological, the methodological, and sometimes, if possible, the axiological aspects of our research onto the topic itself. So when we say social media usage and self-esteem levels of young students of a particular university, we are basically trying to establish relationship between two variables, number one. Number two, we are also trying to reveal the kind of epistemological inquiry that this particular research will entail. Number three, if after a colon we mention that we mention the specificity of the data from where this study is to be conducted, then we are also revealing the methodology, and sometimes, not always, sometimes the axiological aspect of the particular research is also revealed in the research problem itself. That is the title of the study. And now coming to some of the major confusions that young students who are particularly making their entry into this broad field of research they encounter is in terms of the terminologies used in research. For example, there is a confusion between ontology, epistemology, axiology, and methodology, number one. Number two, some people have confusion between aims and objectives as opposed to research questions. Some people confuse aims and objectives with research questions, and vice versa. Some people have confusion related to conceptual framework of the study and theoretical framework of the study. That will take us to the understanding the difference between inductive study and deductive study. One would include conceptual framework, the other would include a theoretical framework. So if it's a theory testing study, then of course it will have a theoretical framework when that is to be included in your introductory chapter. But when it's a inductive research, you are in the process of building a new theory, then that would include a conceptual framework and not a theoretical framework. And sometimes some people use both. It is a gray area whether, because we also have this new area in research that is conceptualized by grounded theory, that would include both conceptual framework as well as theoretical framework. Then another major area of confusion among young research students is the difference between research questions and hypothesis. So sometimes we use hypothesis, sometimes we use research questions, and sometimes some people tend to use both. So in order to clarify, in order to be grammatically correct from the research point of view, we have to know when to use research hypothesis and when to use research questions. That would again take us back to the question of inductive and deductive research. Then another major confusion students have is related to the term questionnaire and interview schedule. So questionnaire is a written form of data collection instrument where the researcher might also outsource it to other data collectors, and they might take this particular written form of protocol and elicit the responses from the data collectors. Interview schedule, on the other hand, is a kind of question answer session where the researcher himself or herself is involved in eliciting the responses from the respondent based on the verbal expression of the questions put across by the researcher. So that would include a physical presence of the researcher, interview schedule, and a questionnaire would also sometimes be in the form of an online questionnaire or an offline questionnaire where the researcher might not exactly be present. So this is a written form of data collection instrument. Another confusing area is the difference between data analysis and data interpretation. So data analysis is based on the data that you have processed, either with the help of statistics or not. and data interpretation would be a more critical investigation, critical exploration, a more nuanced analysis of what what are the implications of the data that you have analyzed mean. So that is basically the difference between data analysis, data interpretation. Another major difference that students mostly face is the distinction between methods and methodology. Methodology is a wider, bigger, broader term within which individual methods are rest, or they are mm, defined. So methodology would include all the different individual methods that are employed by a particular researcher to carry out a particular research study. And then another common mistake that people often commit is a difference between the terms universe, population, and sample. So these are very basic, terms that you need to clarify before you actually jump down and plunge yourself into carrying out a particular research study. And lastly, another confusing area is the difference in terms of these two terms. One is called reference and the other is called bibliography. So when we write the research report and at the end of the report, we include something which is called the bibliography. So bibliography is basically all the references and the resources that we have used while in our process of carrying out this particular research study. That would include books and journals and articles and even newspaper and websites that we have visited, and research papers that we have gone through in order to uh, give shape to our own research. That would include bibliography. A reference would include only those resources which we have cited in the body of our work. For example, there are these two terms that is used in research. It is called in-text citation. In-text citation means those people or those scholars or the works that we have cited in order to substantiate our own claims or in order to make our research more substantive in nature. So reference would include all the resources that we have included in our study, and bibliography would include all the resources that we have gone through but may not have necessarily included in our study. So these are some of the common confusions research students encounter while they go through their research journey. Then that brings us to the main agenda of our discussion today, that is the media research in the 21st century. So what are the ways in which media research in the 21st century has changed from the 20th century? This transition, this transition that has happened from traditional media to new media research, it reflects the evolving landscape of media technologies, communication practices, and audience behavior in what we call the digital age today. Traditional media research primarily focused on studying mass media platforms such as television, radio, newspapers, and magazines using established research methods and theories from disciplines such as communication studies, sociology, and psychology. But with the advent of new media technologies, particularly in the turn of this century, we have the internet playing a significant role in all aspects of our day-to-day life. The internet, social media, mobile devices, and streaming services, these aspects of the disruptions caused by the advancement in technology has led scholars and researchers to shift their focus from from the traditional modes of mass media to understanding the complexities of the digital media environment and the impact these digital media ecosystem has on our society, and it has on our culture, and it has on the different communication metrics. So what has changed in this new millennium is the fact that there is a shift in the focus that media research used to invest itself in. So there is definitely a shift in the research focus. It has expanded the scope of inquiry beyond the traditional mass media to include digital platforms today, social networking sites, online communities, and user-generated content. Research scholars today spending a lot of their research investigation to see how new media technologies influence communication patterns, information dissemination, audience engagement, and cultural production in the digital era. Another aspect of the change or the transformation that you will see in terms of media research in the 21st century is that there is a lot of focus now on interdisciplinarity. Interdisciplinary research means co-opting or combining different facets of our life and then carrying out a particular research. For example, even the new education policy that we have recently had in our education, higher education institution, including, is there a lot of emphasis on interdisciplinarity. So interdisciplinarity would include uh, combining media or communication with different aspects of our with different academic disciplines. For example, not only psychology, sociology, or philosophy within the domain of social sciences, but it also spills over to the applied sciences, the natural sciences, and even pure sciences. So that brings us to uh, the invention of new terms like digital humanities, or you know uh, artificial intelligence, or algorithmic journalism, or data journalism, or data analytics, or big data analytics. So these terminologies have become part and parcel of our life today because of the shift that, or the transformation that has happened in the field of not only the research focus but also the interdisciplinarity that has come into or intruded into the way research is conducted, particularly media research is conducted today. So that also has involved new methodological innovations in terms of media research, and also the emergence of new concepts and theories, which we'll go to a little later. But what importantly, what also it has also has also brought within the ambit of media research is the new policy guidelines and the regulatory frameworks that have come about because of the advent of these new, or the mushrooming of these new media and information and communication technologies that have come about to govern our life and our lifestyles. So uh, after this, I go into this slide on the 21st century scale, where Kerry et al. 2013, they say that 21st century skills should include things like collaboration. Now, collaboration is one of the frameworks within which interdisciplinary research rests. So collaboration, we will see a lot of collaboration in the future of media research. We will see communication, we will see digital literacy, the issue of citizenship, problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, and productivity. All these will be important aspects of media research in the future. And they have included these various aspects of skills into, and they have called it the 4 C's, or the super skills for the 21st century. And these 4 super skills of the 21st century are creativity, communication, critical thinking, and collaboration. So these are the 4 broad areas within which media research will be investing a lot of their investigation and exploration in. So that brings us to the major, disruptions that have been brought about by the technological advancement in the 21st century. So one of the major causes or manifestation of the media revolution that we say today, it has been brought about by technological disruption. And what are the elements that fall into the technological disruptions? The first is the internet explosion. The explosion of internet, the widespread adoption of the internet, especially broadband connections, have created a global platform for information sharing, communication, bypassing the traditional media gatekeepers. The second technological disruption is the mobile revolution. The rise of smartphones and tablet PCs have made media consumption portable and instantaneous, leading to new formats like short videos and bite-sized content. The third technological disruption is the social media boom. Platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube have empowered individuals to become creators as well as consumers of media. And they have not only become creators and consumers, but also become distributors and disrupting the traditional media monopoly and the ecology and fostering a user-generated content paradigm. So the social media boom, mobile revolution, internet explosion, and the fourth is digitization of content. Music, movies, and other entertainment transition from physical formats to digital formats, facilitating easier access, distribution, and new business models that has also brought in its challenges like piracy and illegal aspects of the creative industry. And then the fifth element of the technological disruption has been triggered by artificial intelligence and algorithms. The development of artificial intelligence and algorithms is transforming the media creation, distribution, and personalization, influencing what content users see and how they interact with it. So these are some of the major, elements that have triggered the technological disruption. The second major disruption has been caused in the arena of our socio-economic transformation. So what are the elements within the socio-economic transformation? The first element is the globalization. Increased intercultural globalization has led to increased intercultural exchange that has led to a demand for diverse media content, prompting internationalization of media companies and global brands. And then we have also seen in the socio-economic shift in the last 2 to 3 decades, the rise of social and political movements. The new social movements and political movements have all been triggered by the digital technologies. Particularly, we can take the example of the Arab Spring, which were mobilized or galvanized by the aggressive use of mobile phone and the internet. Then we have another shift taking place in our society, that is the demand for personalization of content. Consumers crave for personalized experiences, driving targeted advertising, recommendation algorithms, and niche content platforms. And then we have another major development taking place when we look at the media ecosystem in our country, including is the economic concerns. For example, the ownership patterns of the media establishment, the concentration of ownership, and the corporate influence, they have all raised concerns about the access, the diversity, and the representation in media. And all these issues have become part and parcel of the new paradigm of media research in the 21st century. The third shift that has disruption that has brought about the media revolution is the cultural shift. The cultural shift has led to the shifting of the consumption habits. We are now familiar with terms like the platform economy or the attention economy. These are, terms that have gained currency because of the shifting consumption habits of people who driven or triggered by the digital technology that is at their disposal. And the second is the desire for interaction and participation. Audiences today, because of the digital convergence that has made possible the interactivity also possible in mass media technology, that we today see that audiences are no longer passive consumers. They actively engage in the journalism or even in the mass media, platforms through comments, likes, shares, or seeking participatory experiences. And that has in effect led also the information superhighway has also led to what we call a filter fatigue. And that has led to another dangerous area that a lot of focus has recently gone into. That is the area of fake news or dissemination of disinformation or dissemination of what we call hate speech. And all these areas have also become very critical and crucial areas of media research in the 21st century. Additionally, another area of media research has been the convergence of technology. The boundaries between traditional media, that is radio, television, print, and new forms of media, that is digital and online technologies, are blurring the lines between the traditional and the new, creating new hybrid platforms and new experiences for the consumers. And another area is the changing regulatory landscape. For example, you might be aware of the new convergence bill. Then we have the information technology bill that regulates most of the content that is available on the internet based services. So all these have also led to policy or governance related issues have also become research subjects or topics for people to investigate in this new media ecosystem. And coming to the key methods and approaches, because we are at the fag end of our presentation now. What are the major methods and approaches that are employed in the media research of the 21st century? Some of the terms you are all familiar with. I will just run through them. One of the terms that is used as a methodological approach to new media research is called big data analysis. So big data analysis has already become a reality. This involves using large data sets to identify trends and patterns in the media use. For example, researchers can use data from social media platforms to track how people are sharing and consuming news. Another arena of media research analysis would be network analysis. That would include social network analysis, neural network analysis, dynamic network analysis. There are different, network analysis that maps the relationship between different media actors such as news organizations, journalists, and audiences. Then we have another method, which is of course a traditional method, but used in newer formats to fit in with the newer technologies that have come about. For example, ethnography. Ethnography involves conducting in-depth studies of small groups of people to understand their media practices and how they use their media in their everyday life. Today, we have different avatars of ethnography to carry out research, to investigate or explore into our digital lives. For example, we have new terms like digital ethnography or nethnography. So these are also terms or methods that are employed in newer research explorations. And then we have experimental methods. These involves creating control environments to test the effects of media on people. So, for example, researchers might conduct an experiment to see how exposure to violent video games affect people's behavior. So these are gaining renewed relevance again in the 21st century, because online gaming has become one of the fastest growing sector within the media and entertainment industry, and a lot of uh, people, especially young people, are consuming online video games. And as a result of it, a large part of the media research is also focused or concentrated in analyzing the different aspects of the relationship between online gaming and people's sociological as well as cultural identity formation as well as behavior. And then, of course, we have a traditional method called the content analysis, but content analysis has gained different, avatars or formats. For example, we have a newer, format of content analysis called framing analysis, priming analysis. These are some newer areas of content analysis that are more and more researchers are engaged in today while carrying out their research activities. So in summary, we can say that what are the key characteristics of media research in the 21st century? We can say in summary that the key characteristics of media research in the 21st century are that it draws on interdisciplinarity, transdisciplinarity, multidisciplinarity, and it also involves mixed methods approaches. Most of the new media research analyses are rooted in mixed method approaches. Then a lot of the new media research is now focused on new media, that is digital media. Significant research on emerging media forms like social media research, mobile media research, virtual reality and augmented reality, artificial intelligence, and exploring their impact on individuals and society. Then another characteristic of this new media research is the global perspective, that is recognizing the borderless world that we live in today, as well as recognizing the interconnectedness of the world. Research increasingly has adopted a more global lens, examining the media flows, cultural exchange, and representational issue across different formats of media. And then another key characteristics of the media research is the evolving ethics. The ethical considerations, they are also undergoing transformation with the rise of big data and algorithmic decision making. Ethical considerations regarding privacy, consent, surveillance, and representation have all become paramount in media research in the 21st century. The next would be algorithmic bias and fairness, examining how algorithms embedded in social media platforms and recommendation systems can perpetuate bias and discrimination. That calls to mind the concept like echo chamber and filter bubble by Eli Pariser. These are some of the aspects within research that algorithmic bias and fairness has brought about. Then another major key characteristics of new media in the 21st century, research in the 21st century would involve research on misinformation and disinformation, and to understand the various dynamics that go into the spread of false information online and its impact on public discourse, trust, and the whole concept of democracy. Then another major area is data privacy and security. It investigating the ethical implications of data collection, usage, and potential breaches in the media landscape. Another area is the use of media and the mental health, the psychological health, the spiritual health, the emotional health of consumers of media, particularly young people and children. This particular area has also become an ever increasing area for researchers to explore and investigate, media and mental health. And then another area is media and social movements, analyzing how media platforms are utilized by social movements for mobilization, communication, and advocacy. So uh, with this, and at the end, I had just put up a slide on what are the different top research and productivity tools that are available today for young researchers to carry out, to make things pretty easy for them, because we have an app or a software for virtually all the steps that are involved in the research project. For example, we have softwares to do our literature search, we have writing assistant softwares, we have grammar and paraphrasing software, we have citation software like Mendeley, Zotero, we have illustration software, data, quantitative data analytical software, qualitative data analytical software, and then we have visualization of data software, then productivity. So conducting research in the 21st century has become much more, in a way, convenient for young researchers, because a lot of the things that were earlier done manually by researchers are today, there are softwares or apps or digital assistants that are available to help out with your research activities. So with this, I come to the end of my presentation. I hope it made some sense to you. And if there is anything else you'd like to share with me, I can do it right now. Yeah.
So thanks a lot.
Yeah.
There are new things which I also got to know. Already we have a discussion revolving around approaches and reasoning.
Yeah.
But the things which are there, especially in Indian research, these things are very new.
Yeah.
And it requires more
It's a broad area. Yes, yes. It's a very broad area, but this was just an overview of the different aspects or the areas within which our young people can go out to look for research problems.
Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you, Neelatphal. Yes, and thank you to all of you for your patient listening. And I hope we'll meet someday again.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So I take your leave then, Neelatphal, because I have a class
Yes,
to
thanks a
attend
lot.
now. Yeah. Bye then. Bye. Yeah.
Yes.